Here we go!
Yo, this is one of my absolute favorite fan games out there, and I am so happy to revisit this. What's up, everybody? This is your Chief of the Blue Blurs, Gamer Blake 90, speeding on back to my channel with a new video in hand. Whoa, whoops, almost dropped my controller trying to style there. And I'm happy to have you all join me as we prepare to dive into a brand new playthrough. Yes, I can already see you guys rolling your eyes at me, because I've tried and failed repeatedly to perform juggling acts for multiple playthroughs, but I can't help it, okay? I'm a stubborn guy. Bear with me. So, yeah. We will be revisiting a fan game I previously completed back in June, and that is Sonic 3D Blast in 2D, or Sonic 3D in 2D. A fan-made 2D reimagining of the original Sonic 3D Blast created by Soda Nut, who spent 3 long years, as I understand it, working on this game before releasing it into the open earlier this year. And even now, it is still receiving content updates. So, needless to say, hours upon hours of labor and love went into this game, and that much becomes highly evident the further you play through this game, because it just comes off as an amazing love letter to the Sonic series, and not just a Sonic 3D Blast. Again, you see my last playthrough for this fan game, you will already be aware of that. But if you haven't seen my playthrough yet, that will be linked in one of the video cards at the upper right, and you can also catch that playlist, along with the download link for Sonic 3D and 2D, in the description below each of my videos that will be focusing on this game. So if you haven't seen that playthrough yet, please make sure you go and check that out. You might find it entertaining, you might not, you never know. And also make sure to give this game a shot, it's definitely worth your time. So, now the question comes up, why exactly are we revisiting this fan game? Well, the reason is staring you right in the face. That little pink demon with an uncanny ability to wield a hammer that's more than twice her size. Single-handedly at that. Much like Cloud the Buster Thor. I wonder if she took lessons from him. Anyway, this is Amy Rose. And as I recall near the end of Sonic Adventure, she'd make that Sonic respect her. And let me tell you, if you do manage to beat the whole game with Amy, she may very well earn Sonic respect, because I consider her version of the game to be a completely different game from the normal formula, like a hard mode version of Sonic 3D and 2D. And yes, I do mean hard mode version, but we'll elaborate upon that in a second. If you wonder how you get to play as her, there are 2 unlockable characters in this fan game. One is Amy, the other is Shadow the Hedgehog. And how you unlock them is, you simply beat the game with all the Chaos Emeralds collected, and boom! You unlock them both. You have to unlock them one at a time though, but they do meet the exact same criteria for unlocking them. It doesn't change the storyline in any way if you play through the game as either character, but it does open up the possibility for each level, as someone that was kind enough to inform me about. So, the purpose of this series is to give Amy her time to shine in the spotlight for the entirety of Sonic 3D and 2D, and of course I will do a similar series for Shadow the Hedgehog. Without further ado, guys, let's get started. To play as either character, you have to select them from the extras menu, but if you do that, whatever save file you previously had before you chose to start the game with that character will be completely overwritten. And seeing as I have yet to figure out how to access a level select without the need to overwrite my save file, it's sadly the only option I have, but I don't mind in the least. For as much as I love this game, I've been playing it an awful lot with an overwritten file or not an overwritten file. So hey, worked out nice for me. Alright, so welcome to the Green Grove Zone. And one huge difference you'll end up seeing, or hearing rather, is that we are using the Sega Saturn version of the Sonic 3D Blast soundtrack. This is made possible by a DLC content update Soda Nut release that allows you to replace the Genesis soundtrack with the Sega Saturn soundtrack. And it is the infinitely superior version of the Sonic 3D Blast soundtrack in my humble opinion. Like, It was only recently that I rediscovered the existence of a Sega Saturn version of Sonic 3D Blast. As a child, I ignorantly assumed that the Sega Saturn was nothing more but a glorified version of the Sega Genesis, which I suppose it is. But once I watched a playthrough of the Saturn version of 3D Blast, I fell in love. The differences between both versions were a lot more drastic than I initially anticipated them to be. The presentations of each level, and in particular the soundtrack, oh my freaking god. I cannot for the life of me understand why it is not the mainstream version of the soundtrack for this game. It's absolutely ethereal, and it's just powerful. I could come up with a lot of words to describe how much I love the soundtrack, but I think that much you're already understanding from the way I'm gushing about it. Alright. Now, while we're kicking on this series, I should explain to you the moveset for Amy Rose. One thing you'll obviously see is that whenever you jump with Amy, she does not curl up into a ball form, much like the other Sonic characters can. This is problematic because by jumping into fashion, she does not have a hitbox, so she cannot employ the primary method of jumping at her enemy to defeat them, like every other character can. But, to make up for that, she comes equipped with her hammer, which you can use while on the ground or in the air. And you wonder how to use it? You press the B button, or whatever button is assigned to your control scheme as the B button for a Sega Genesis controller, to swing with the hammer. You can do so while you're grounded or in mid-air. And you can also use a hammer attack while running, but if you do, Amy will come to a complete stop while she is swinging her hammer. This may seem detrimental, but on the contrary, it can have its uses. Because if you're anticipating off-screen hazards, you can immediately stop Amy's movement by swinging with her hammer as she's running, so that she will come to a stop, and you can potentially avert whatever danger you're about to run into. Oh yeah, we have the Act 1 boss. In case you've forgotten who it is, let me remind you. Silver Sonic, from the Game Gear version of Sonic 2. You better get ready to mash the B button a lot while you're jumping, because that will be how you attack this guy and every other boss in the game. It hadn't been too long since I last played this game, so I remember very well how this little guy works. But for those who are unfamiliar with him, he's nothing like the Sonic Mania version of him that you see in that game. His attacks are a lot more frequent, and they include a balled-up attack that will cause you to bounce off of him if you try to attack him while he is in that form, and it won't do him any damage. You have to attack him while he is standing still to do any damage at all. And you gotta be careful, because as you attack him, he will keep moving to the left and right of the screen, while occasionally jumping across the very top. But overall, this isn't a really difficult boss to deal with. Oh, and you leave behind the Chaos Emerald upon beating him. Now initially, when I first played through Green Grove, I thought that you would be able to get every Chaos Emerald in the game just by beating the Act 1 bosses. But this is only the case for both Green Grove and Rusty Run. The other 5 emeralds you have to earn in the special stages. And I'm gonna warn you now, those are a freaking headache. You might recall that much if you see my last playthrough of the game, but just in case you need a fresh reminder, the way you find the special stages is basically how you would find them in Sonic 3. There are big rings scattered around each of the stages. You jump into them, and the special stage starts. And as to how they play, we'll get into that later. I haven't even finished showing you all of Amy's moves, have I? So just as a quick review, you can swing with her hammer while you're moving along on the ground or while you're in the air, and you can use her hammer in mid-air as many times as you wish until you land on the ground. But if you're bouncing off the spring, you cannot use her hammer while in mid-air, so keep that in mind. While you're grounded, if you hold down and then press the hammer button, you will perform a hammer flip. But, as you can see, one of the downsides to playing with a very zoomed up camera like this is that it's very hard to anticipate enemies that are off screen. I didn't even know that Buzz Bomber was there. So just make me wonder, could you use Amy's hammer to deflect projectiles just like how Sonic can with his Insta-Shield? I had yet to test that though, but we'll probably find out as we get further and further into the game. But yeah, you have her hammer flip. The significant nerf to it though is that you cannot use it while moving, unlike in Sonic Adventure, where you could perform her hammer flip after building up enough speed. And speaking of speed, she will not move as fast as Sonic, as she does not come with a spin dash, more like a mini peel out we're going to call it. It's performed with the exact same input as if you were doing a spin dash. You hold down and mash a jump button, and you give Amy a boost in speed, although not quite to the same extent that Sonic and his other friends can get. In essence, she doesn't match any of her friends in terms of speed, so it'll be kind of a slowpoke playing through this game with Amy. Hence, the hard mode version. But you may find her hammer attacks to be very useful, cause my god, this little girl can jump while she is doing that hammer flip. This may actually be substantially useful in the boss battle the more I think about it. Especially from recalling how the Act 2 boss works in Green Grove, A lot of ideas are coming to mind. I can't wait to experiment with all of them as we kick off this series, which I hope you're all enjoying, and if you do, let me know with your likes and comments down below. Again, we will be playing through the entire game using this little pink demon right here. And of course we'll do the same thing with Shadow the Hedgehog. At one point, I can't be sure because some of my playthroughs tend to be quite spontaneous, but who knows. Now, keeping you in mind of how Green Grove works in 2D, it's basically an amalgamation of elements taken from many of the starting levels throughout Sonic games, while of course adding in its own touch. Oh, and that's right, Amy's hammer can break through walls. This is huge because there was some area with breakable walls that Sonic could not get to. Amy, on the other hand, solved that problem just with one swing of her hammer. Woo! You're gonna love it. It doesn't change the storyline in the game by any means if you pick any character other than Sonic. However, each of their abilities widens the possibilities of each stage. So the replay value for this fan game is very, very high, and definitely worth your time. Anyway, we are underwater, and frankly, that's not a situation I'd like to be in, so we better hurry. I don't think the sight of Amy drowning in a game would be very attractive, and unfortunately, that's about to happen. Oh, and that's right. I mentioned the Sega Saturn soundtrack. You can switch between that and the Sega Genesis soundtrack, although not every piece of music sampled for the Saturn version of this game will be taken from Sonic 3D Blast on the Saturn. Like the drowning theme, that actually came from Sonic Adventure, and the theme used for the menu screen was taken from either Sonic Gems collection or Sonic Mega Plus collection. I can't really recall which one exactly. I just know that I definitely heard that as a menu theme for either of those titles that were used to bundle up a huge number of the classic game from the Sonic series. Along with some other underrated gems that aren't commonly known about, like Sonic the Fighters. And initially, Sega Sonic the Hedgehog was going to be included with that bundle, but they wound up canceling plans for its inclusion because of the keyboard controls that were initially used for Sega Sonic. Most unfortunately, because that's quite an interesting take on the Sonic universe. Sega Sonic, I mean. Okay, we got a problem here. We cannot seem to reach that homing attack shield. Not that we would be able to use it at Amy, so we're gonna forget about it. You can still pick up the shield, but you can't use the homing attack property associated with it. So, once again, hard mode, people. It is so tedious not being able to spin dash with this character, as it would allow me to improvise for off-screen hazards quite frequently. It's one strategy I tend to abuse with Sonic an awful lot while I'm running through stages, in case I'm about to run into enemies that I don't see on the screen at the moment. Uh-oh. So you're gonna have to get into the habit of pressing 2 buttons simultaneously to attack your enemies while you are playing as Amy. So yeah, this can get quite stressful, but what can I say? This could make for an interesting challenge. And I relish the challenge, so bring it on. Sonic himself was very intent on providing a difficulty curve for this fan game, as was made evident in the reasoning that he gave for his exclusion of Sonic Spin Dash. He felt it was too easily accessible, along with the ability to add a flight cancel to Tails. So I definitely respect his desire to make this quite a challenging game to play through. I wouldn't exactly want it to be linear like, well, the level layouts in Sonic Forces have sadly become. Alright, now this is our first... Oh my god, I was about to get so excited. I was starting to think that maybe I could basically one-shot this boss by performing 8 consecutive hammer attacks against him. But that didn't quite work out the way I was hoping for, but still, dang! We can really make short work of these bosses with Amy Rose. Sonic, on the other hand, has to take the higher road. Well, the more difficult road. Wow. And here I thought protagonist privilege was a thing, but apparently not. You go, girl! And I didn't get to show all the special stages again, but to be honest, I'm not too eager to because, again, I do find them tedious. But I will have to make it a point to do that because I believe she has a super form. At least I hope she does. I think there were mentions of it floating around, but I'll refresh my memory, maybe in the next video, because that's gonna do it for this one. One detail I forgot to cover about Amy's moveset before I end this video is that while you're in midair, if you hold down and press the hammer button, Amy will immediately zip back towards the ground while performing her hammer spin attack. Similar to when you want to stop your movement horizontally, this is really useful as while you're doing it in midair, she will come to a complete stop and zip back towards the ground, while improvising for any threats located directly underneath her, like that did. So this will be a very useful tool to keep in mind while you're playing through the game as this character. So what do you all think of Amy in Sonic 3D and 2D? Do you find her a fascinating character to play as, or do you find her rather underwhelming? Let me know what you think with your likes and comments down below, and if you want to keep up with this series, make sure you hit that sub button and ring that bell. Also keep in mind that I am juggling a playthrough with Sonic 2 on the Sega Ages port for the Nintendo Switch, so if you haven't checked that out yet, I hope you will do so. I'd definitely love to hear from you on that series. I make it a point to play through as many Sonic games as I possibly can, whether they are fan-made or original, so that'll basically be the main avenue of content you can look forward to from my channel. Again, this is GamerBlank90. This fan game was made by Sodanuk. Huge props to him for the amazing amount of effort that went into this. And I hope you all go and pay him your respects. So yeah, that'll do it for this video. Next video, we're going to be going to the Rusty Ruins Zone and... bruh. Do you also understand now why I prefer the Sega Saturn soundtrack? I was robbed as a child. I ignorantly assumed the Saturn was just a glorified version of a Genesis, and I'm really regretting it. I didn't exactly have the privilege of affording one, unfortunately. I was only a kid back then. I'd almost forgotten the Saturn existed, even. But upon rediscovering it, I've been rapidly falling in love with Sonic 3D Blast. So I look forward to sharing lots of content about it. But for now, gonna take myself a little break. I will see you all next time for some more Amy and Sonic 3D and 2D. Until then. And Amy agrees with me when I say peace! Blue blurs for life. Or I guess in this case, pink blurs for life. That might suit her more. Take care. Peace out.